Welcome back to Golden Roll Radio. We are seeing what we expected to see, which is the dollar index continuing higher. It's pushed above 93. And what I think is noteworthy in relation to gold is that gold was down, testing the 1300 level last night. And we wake up this morning in America and it is actually up. So you have the dollar doing what we expected, which is continuing this little push up. But gold is being resilient and holding this 1300 level. Silver's holding well as well.
Yeah, Robert, I said I'd step out on a limb last week and talk about gold holding above 1300. I will tell you, by the time this show went live on Thursday, I was a little bit nervous. I think we got down to, 1302?
Right.
But we did never break below that 1300. Now, we've tested it a couple times over the last week, like you said, but we still remain really bouncing back up to 1313, 1315. Dollar up, Dow up, and we can't not mention oil, especially with Trump pulling the United States out of the Iranian nuclear discussion. And some of the follow-up there we're seeing out of Saudi Arabia saying, okay, well, if Iran gets nukes, we get nukes too. So it seems like everybody wants the nukes, and obviously any crisis or chaos in the Middle East is going to have a dramatic effect on the oil prices, as we see oil pushing up to 71 and a quarter?
Yeah, oil's up 2%. And going back to the resiliency of gold on a short-term time frame, that 1302 number that you mentioned from last week kind of being the low, and it held the 1300 level. I watched last night, the low last night was 1303, I think 60 cents. So on a short time frame, if you look from last week's low 1302 to this week's low, we actually have a higher low being put in. We'll see if that holds, but that's kind of noteworthy, I think. We're still in a range with gold, and where it breaks out of this range, I think, will be significant. Not trying to read too much into what we've been watching it, just kind of trading above 1300 here between low 1300s and 1350-ish, 60-ish. Not to try to read too much into it, but I will say that if we break out to the north of these previous highs, then gold's going to run. And I think once it does that, if we're ready for that and it does it, great. If we see a little bit more downside and a pullback, then fine. There's an opportunity to step in. But once we see the breakout to the north, I think we're going to have people looking back on these last few years of gold and realizing that we have been building a very solid foundation with the gold price since December 2015, the low there at 1,050. So in hindsight, if we were to fast forward and then look back to where we are now, we could be living through this base building that we've been going through for the last few years. And once it breaks out of this to the north, people are going to look back on this and say, why did I miss that, if you missed it?
Yeah, Robert, and that brings back memories of almost a decade ago, when the equities market crashed, when we saw that, 2.5-fold increase in gold as it went from the high 600s up to almost 2,000. It's not unreasonable to see these patterns repeat themselves, especially with the inflation rates where we're at today, the money printing where we're at today, the international concerns that we have, some of the issues with the equities market we've talked about ad infinitum at this point over the last year, following on the heels of the equity market taking that 12% drop this year.
On the flip side of that breakout that we will eventually see with gold, if we do see gold pulling back into the high 1200s, mid 1200s even, it'll still be building a base until it were to try to really collapse, which I don't think it's going to happen. But if we were to see a pullback from here, then you're still going to be base building because the previous low and the trend line is pretty far down. So we have some room here for gold to pull back if the dollar decides it wants to keep rallying into the 95 range we've talked about. Gold has room to still pull back and be on this trend line and building the base for an eventual launch higher. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I completely agree. So in that case, for this week, I'm not going to extend my 1,300 goal. In fact, I'm going to keep my fingers crossed, and hopefully we see that 1,285 to continue to build that base that we've watched start since the beginning of 2017. Now, speaking of building bases, I think you have to look at the other white metals right now, platinum and palladium, and their comparison. If you look at the longer-term platinum chart over the last year or so, We've had a very distinct top and bottom, a sideways trading channel. We just came into it again about a week ago. In fact, we even broke below 900 on the platinum price. You remember the last time we were at that price back in December of this past year, we ran up to the low 1,000. We had about $120 rise, and we saw some outstanding opportunity between that platinum palladium ratio. So if you haven't positioned yet into platinum as a part of your overall metals portfolio, definitely give us a call here so we can help add that in, and you can start taking advantage of some of those price discrepancies.
I have to say we've been most successful trading those ratios in IRAs.
Well, yeah, the tax-deferred status and the no capital gains tax benefit of being in an IRA is always the best place to do that type of strategy.
As we go forward, why be watching the Iran situation with the oil? There's a lot of tensions going on there. I mean, I was watching a video of these guys in Iran who are supposed to be leaders burning the American flag, saying death to America. I mean, in essentially what you would envision if it was in America, you'd envision it in Congress or in the House. And they're literally up front, sitting there burning our flag and hating us and cheering and stomping it out. And that's just maddening to think that we are antagonizing these people because they do have some power. And so this will send ripples throughout the region. You're already seeing it, and you're going to see more of it. That's it this week for Golden Rule Radio. Thanks for listening. You can follow us on Twitter at ICA Gold. You can subscribe to us below by clicking the subscribe button.
If you want to get notifications, make sure to ring that bell. If you have any questions, you're always welcome to give us a call at 1-800-525-9556 or head on over to our website, McAlvanyICA.com. As always, thanks for listening and have a good week.